guys, thank you. Welcome to this evening's event. Really lovely to see you all here. Appreciate you taking the time out of your evening because it is a beautiful evening out there, so hopefully you can make the most of it once we're finished. We are having a nice informal conversation tonight about our newly established mentor scheme. This has come about really because we've got such a huge network of women and we're so devoted to supporting each other that we wanted to formalise it and make sure that, you know, we're all there to help each other when we can. I have seen a few new faces on here this evening, so if you don't know me, I'm Katie. I've been at E2W for about 3.5 years. I head up the membership and event side of E2W. So if you have any questions or queries along those lines, then please obviously do get in touch with me. As I said, we pride ourselves on being a network for women in financial services. So alongside the events, we also have a recruitment arm as well, which is really important and just ties in quite nicely to what we're trying to achieve with the mentor scheme. I just think it's important to note what a mentor is. So a mentor is someone that you can seek guidance from with your career path. You can also seek motivational support, emotional support, and they can help you set career goals as well. So I think that an E2W mentor will be slightly different from a mentor that you may perhaps have in your internal organisation at the moment. This person can be removed from the situation, give impartial advice and really be that soundboard and that outsider's opinion that sometimes we all need in our careers. So just moving on to the mentor scheme itself, I'll be running it with the support of Mark as always. It's really simple. If you want to be mentored by someone, we would ask that you're an Alpha Challenger. So the Alpha Challengers are the women in our community that are between kind of 5 to 10 years of experience. They're the next generation of female leaders and really, you know, looking to break through the mould. These Alpha Challengers will be mentored by E2W members. So women that we already know in our community and obviously new women who want to join us as well. The scheme will be run quite simply in the respect that I'll ask for some criteria from yourself in terms of the background of the person that you want to be connected with, whether you want them to be in quite a similar position to yourself, have a similar career trajectory or completely different. The programme will run for about 6 months. We expect that you'll be in contact with your mentor once a month, but I would like to think that it was more weekly, bi-weekly, if you have capacity to. Around the 6-month mark, I'll touch base with you, make sure that you're happy to continue the relationship. If you want to part ways, that's absolutely fine. We understand that people are very busy and may not be able to give any more of their time. If the mentor is looking for another person to connect with and support, then we'd obviously love to connect you with an Alpha Challenger and vice versa. We're going to be hosting more events in the future as well, and hopefully at some point in the near future this will be some kind of social gathering where we can get together with mentors and mentees and have a bit of a network event. So keep an eye on the website and like I said, we'd love for you to get involved. I'm really proud of the work that we've done already for the mentor scheme. We've got some fantastic working relationships already. People are getting a lot out of this, so if you want to be mentored or have a mentor, then please do get in touch. So I'm going to pass you over to Sophie and Mihaela. Sophie and Mihaela are Alpha Challengers and they are on the advisory board, so they've been working really closely with me. They've done an absolutely fabulous job of getting together a panel of guest speakers who are ladies that have throughout their career sought the support of mentors, but they've also been mentored by someone as well. So they're going to be able to give some really good insight how a strong partnership works and yeah, hopefully answer any questions that you have.
Katie, thank you so much for that introduction. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Mihaela Bragg. I'm currently a manager at e-finance consulting Reply. It's actually a startup management consulting company under the umbrella of a bigger company. The company launched in London in 2019. However, the Reply umbrella company, it's been around for more than 20 years and functions as a network of individual and specialized companies. I personally, in my career, have enjoyed a really diverse career. I traveled the world and I had different roles and experienced many different working environments, having had the opportunity to live and work in 5 different countries across 3 continents in the last 10 years. And during all this time, it was so important to look up at my managers, my mentors, my coaches, to actually get the advice from them. And you can probably all remember a former manager, a coach, a teacher, or someone who gave you specific advice and changed your life or your career path. And having that in mind and working with E2W and Alpha Challengers advisory board, we've put together this specific event because we wanted to discuss various aspects of how a successful mentoring partnership can support the next generation of young female talent. So as you can see on this specific slide, in this online event, we want to address a few topics, such as the difference between mentoring, sponsorship, and coaching. We hope you can gain insights on how to foster a meaningful mentoring relationship, and also to hear directly from our E2W mentors a few key lessons they learned in their successful careers and how working with a mentor can help in difficult situations. Just a few details about housekeeping. We envision this panel discussion more like an open conversation, same as Katie mentioned. We have 5 guest speakers. Sophie and I, we prepared a list of questions we would like to go through, but we also want to leave 10 or 15 minutes at the end for your questions. However, during the panel discussion, please feel free to submit your questions, to type them in the chat box. Sophie and I will either collect them and just like couple with our questions, or we can address right at the end. Or you can also raise your hand if you want in the last 10-15 minutes and obviously address your questions. Thank you so much, and over to you, Sophie.
Oh, there we go, off mute. That's great. Thanks, Mark. Hi there, I'm Sophie Simpson. I'm part of the Franchise New Business Group at Goldman Sachs. I've been here just over 2 years, 1 year as a contingent contractor employee, and then 1 year as in a permanent position. So yeah, just over 2 years at the firm. And before that, I did a law degree at Durham, graduating in 2017, so a few years ago now. As Mark and Katie said, I'm part of the advisory board for E2W, and it's been a great opportunity, particularly the mentor scheme. So I myself have a mentor, and at work I'm going for promotion this year, and I can really see the invaluable insight that you can get from having those regular mentor guidance in advisory sessions, and it's proving really invaluable. And just wanted to help put on this session to learn from successful mentor relationships and ultimately get some top tips on how to foster a really successful relationship and get the most out of it. So without further ado, we can introduce our amazing lineup of speakers. So firstly, we've got Anna Gender, who's a director in intermediary sales at Fidelity International. Thank you for joining us, Anna. We've got Gaia Sarada-Banavan, who's a risk management consultant and Advantage Reply. We've got Angela Happel, who's an institutional client manager. Vivian Chan, who's a director of head of finance in Nomura Asset Management. And Jill Lungley, who's a non-executive director in technology at Credit Suisse. Thank you all so much for joining us. So if we can launch, Mihaela, I think we're going straight into the kind of questions that we've had to think about, predefined ones that we're going to address to some specific mentors based on their background. But again, to reiterate, if any of the panel has anything they want to add or discuss, feel free to jump in. So to get started, Jill, a question to you. To kind of set the foundation of what we're going to discuss, mentoring, what do you think that potential mentees should expect from a mentor relationship? How is a mentor different from a sponsor at work, a career coach, an emotional kind of counselor? I think something maybe at work that isn't well known is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, which they are different. We know what value can each bring.
That's it. Sorry, I got myself off mute. Hi, thank you. Well, thanks for a great question. I think let's just first look at the definition, or my understanding of the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. I think if a sponsor is somebody typically quite senior in an organization who is not really there so much to add advice or to advise, but more to open doors, who can sort of support you. Typically won't be your direct line manager, but quite often can be somebody in an influential position, somebody who perhaps you may talk to, but I think you would talk to in a way of making sure that you're promoting yourself, your skills, and also drawing on them for advice, perhaps on how to navigate the organization you're in, or the organization you would like to be in, and opening doors and advising who the key people are, maybe providing introductions. A mentor, I think, is very different. A mentor is somebody who you can, who will advise you, who you can have an open and transparent conversation with. Shouldn't be your line manager in my mind, and ideally somebody who is independent from the place that you are working. It doesn't have to be independent from the organization, but typically not too close to home, so that you can have an open and conversation. For me, what's important though with that selection of the mentor is know what you want to get from it. So perhaps at different points in your career, the type of mentor you need, or the sort of advice you want to get, counsel that you want to get, will vary, and the selection of your mentor is going to be very important. So I'll give you an example. I've never had children, and so wanting somebody to perhaps advise you if you're at that point in your career on how you balance home life with work life, and particularly if you want to have a family, I may not be the best mentor for you. I may be able to give you some sort of sympathy, but I wouldn't like to say I'd ever done that. Likewise, though, at different points in your life, therefore, maybe having somebody who is closer to where you are in an organization may also be beneficial. At other times, if you want to explore how somebody's navigated their careers, talking to somebody like me who's been around for 35 years in banking and technology and banking might give you some insight into the way forward. So think carefully what you want to get out of the relationship. Sponsors will come and go. That's your network as well. So bear in mind, some of my most influential sponsors are people I met early on in my career, who I then touched base and found again at the next organization. Was they'd beat me to it, or they came while I was in that organization. So your sponsors are people that'll be around for a long, long while. And sometimes you don't even know who they are until you suddenly spot them. So hopefully I'll pass on. I won't talk for too long. Pass you over to Sophie.
Thank you, Jill. That's really insightful. Mihaela, have we got the next question you'd like to discuss?
Of course. Thank you so much, Jill, for that. We have also a question for Angela, and this is based on so many years of experience. What would be your suggestion for cultivating a mentor-mentee relationship in a sincere and meaningful way? We know this relationship can change over time, depending on various situations, what the mentee experiences at work. But how should a mentee prepare for the mentoring session in order to build a bond and trust in the mentor-mentee relationship?
Michaela. Yeah, so that word that you just said there is absolutely key, and it's building the trust in the relationship. You're going to be speaking on a confidential basis to the conversation between the mentor and the mentee is on a confidential basis, and so therefore it has to be based on trust. And you also both have to have the same objectives. You both want to be getting something positive and beneficial out of it. In terms of how I've approached it, when I was in the mentee position, I've had two mentors in my career. The first one was set up. I was working at BlackRock at the time. It was a new program that they were initiating, where there were going to be a mentee program, and basically the mentors were persuaded to join it because they were given budget to take people out for lunch. That wasn't a great objective and a great basis for building the mentee relationship. So that didn't work out. We both kind of realised that we didn't have the same objectives about what we wanted to get out of the relationship. So I kind of took it upon myself I liked the idea of having a mentor. I was very young in my career, and so I approached a MD in one of the other departments. And I think that is important, going back to what Jill was saying, having it external to your immediate department is very important. And kind of started to build the relationship. It's very important that there's a balance. It can't be a transactional relationship. As a mentee, you obviously have things that you want to get out of the relationship. You want to be getting the benefit of the mentor's experience, but the mentor has things to gain from the relationship too. And I think that's something that's perhaps overlooked. From my perspective, through this program, I've started be a mentor, and I get a lot out of that, having that relationship. So it's about building trust over time. I think just now we're in a very different situation where the mentor that I have, mentee, sorry, we've not met in person yet. Hopefully we will soon. But I think it's just being open and honest, and making sure that you've got objectives that you can, and goals that you can communicate to the mentor.
Thank you so much, Angela. And picking up on this idea of actually building trust, being able to approach your mentor about things that went wrong for you when trying to execute something at work is essential for learning and your growth as well. So the next question I want to address is for Gaia and Anna as well. I'll start with Gaia, and then Anna, you can pick up on this. Do you find it easier to discuss challenging situations with a mentor who is not part of your organization or your company, with a mentor, for example, through mentoring programs like E2W? So Gaia, over to you, and then Anna, also we want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. So in regards to your question, Mihela, my mentor that I had, so when I was at university, so I went to Queen Mary. We had a mentoring system as well, and the mentor I got, I was in my first year, applying for internships and all those sorts. So the mentor I had, actually, it started with just career advice, and then I ended up actually working for her. So at one point she was actually my line manager, and then after that I obviously went on and I moved on to another role, and now I'm in a completely different company. So interesting question, because I've been in those three roles itself with my mentor. So yeah, definitely it does help to be in a different, so it does help, as I think someone was saying, it's better if they're not your line manager, because it's not a conflict of interest, but of course there's always going to be it's always better to have an outside view, right? When there's a situation, someone external to give you a kind of a support, it's always better. But I think it really depends on the person that you get. If you get along really well in general, I had no problems at all with my mentor, and she's actually one of the closest people in my life still, that I still go to for any personal reasons, career advice, anything. So yeah, it depends on your relationship, and I think it's to be judged depending on your relationship, but that's in my experience anyways. Anna, maybe?
Hi, I think this is a great question, and I think it's, I would start by saying I don't think there's a right answer, because I guess to feed off Gaia's point, I totally agree that every person is different and every situation is different. I personally think that both internal and external mentors can real value, and I think actually having both is probably quite a good idea, particularly in difficult situations. I guess an internal mentor can give you a bit more of an understanding of the working practices, the cultural aspects of the firm you're in. And so they're able to kind of help you understand what might be going wrong, what your challenges are, from a kind of how you can put the right perspective within your firm, how you can work within your firm to improve things that an external perspective might not have. I do agree that not all internal mentors are kind of created equal, and that maybe someone outside of your team is a good way to go, because they'll give you the perspective of the firm, but maybe see things from a bit of a kind of outside perspective. I think external mentors are really, really important, actually, and I think it's, if you're only going to have one, I'd go with an external one. I think getting a neutral perspective and someone who can provide you a barometer of how things work outside of your firm, just because things are done a certain way in the organisation you're part of, doesn't mean that that's the correct way, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. So I think that external perspective is really important. I also think that in many ways an external mentor can be more constructive with you and can challenge you a bit more. As you said, they will not have an agenda, and their perspective will be based on the information you've given them. So they can take the information you've shared with them and look at that from an outsider's perspective, and you can trust them to challenge you with no agenda. So I think that's really important. I mean, I would say, and we'll come on to talk about this a bit more later, but from my own experience, I had an experience where I joined a firm that turned out to not be a good idea for me. And I think if I hadn't had an external mentor, or a number of external mentors, to help me look at that situation with clarity and to empower me to do what was right for me and not necessarily the firm, I think I would have had a very different experience. And I think I'd be looking back on that experience far less positively, and it wouldn't have felt like such a learning experience. It would have felt like quite a negative experience. So I guess to summarize, I think both are very important, and I don't think it hurts to have both in your career.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, Gaia and Anna as well. And picking up on something Anna mentioned about different perspective, we do have in our within our panel members, Vivian, and she experienced quite a lot of different roles and mentors. So I think, Sophie, over to you. We have a specific question for Vivian.
Yeah, exactly. On that point of sort of empowerment, and that the mentor being able to guide you through transitions, like Gaia said, of moving between roles or moving away from particularly a difficult situation, mentors can prove invaluable. So Vivian, what did your mentoring relationship teach you about leadership and that potential progression, for example, from employee to manager? What would your personal insights be on how a mentor can help with that empowerment, leadership transition?
Yeah, I think I actually think it is very important that you have to be honest and very open to your mentor, and also to be open and honest with yourself and where you want to go, and if this is actually the right path for you. And I think it's important to actually discuss with your mentor. I am actually being quite fortunate. I had many mentors, but they're all unofficial. I basically seek them out myself. Most of the time they are my managers or whoever hired me to do the contract. Somehow we got a really good relationship. They will always tell me delegate more, or trying to kind of steer me into the path to become more like a leadership role, because I'm always do, and they're like, no, slow down. It is actually quite comforting for knowing someone there is actually looking out for you. I actually mentor someone as well. When I was actually in contracting in Barclays, I actually got 2 interns. They were actually applying for an internship program. One of the girls, she really wanted to get the job. She wants to be successful. She was there for 8 weeks. And she was a very bright girl. But the problem is that she really wanted that job because she wanted to become an accountant. And then after a little while, you're trying to like really understand what they're trying to do. She doesn't want to be an accountant. And I kind of like steer her to another path and say, well, actually, you shouldn't be, doing this internship. You should be doing something else. Don't waste your life. Don't waste your time doing something like that. So being honest for yourself and also with the mentor, I think is definitely key for that leadership as well, is to make sure that you're guiding them to the correct path. Like, not just for me, I would love her to be working for me at a time. She was really bright, but it's just not right path for her. And I think that's why it's like important to be honest, and that's definitely key. Yeah.
Thanks, Vivian. That's really insightful. Hila, is there? We need to. The next question, I think, is for Anna.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's something she started to talk about. So you mentioned, Anna, there was a clear turning point in your career when you felt you needed the help from a mentor to overcome this trying situation. Can you tell us more about how did you handle the situation and how the mentor helped you to overcome it?
Of course. So yeah, I guess this is a live example from my own experience. And to give you a bit of background, I had a situation where I started a job at a new firm. It was a big move for me. It was a change in role. It was more responsibility. I saw it as the next stage in my career. It was a really big deal for me. At the interview stage, I met the whole team. I met all the senior leaders. I was pumped. I went into this role thinking, this is the organisation that's going to be for me. It's really ambitious, but I was led to believe that there was also this collaborative, supportive approach. And I was really looking forward to it. And unfortunately, very, very early on, starting the job, it became clear to me that the culture of the team and the working practices of the team were really not suited to me. It was far too aggressive. It was, and I don't use this word lightly, it was very chauvinistic. The modus operandi was one of competition between colleagues, shouting over people. That there was no collaboration, there was no team approach. And it was quite a difficult situation because I was the new person. So, I reached out initially to my boss internally, and tried to talk to him about it. I talked to peers around the firm. I even spoke to HR confidentially about it, and ultimately, I had to turn outside of that to get help because, the responses I was typically getting were, you're the outlier, you need to change yourself. And I realised that was wrong. I'd never in my career at all, I guess luckily for me, felt disadvantaged to be a female. And I also, anyone who knows me well at all would say I'm pretty thick-skinned. So to kind of say to me, you need to change, get over it, get on with it, was quite a difficult thing for me. And I was incredibly disappointed and quite frankly disillusioned. Luckily, I had a number of great mentors, but one lady in particular, who actually worked in recruitment at the time, but now has her own coaching business, which I guess says a lot about, the quality of mentoring that I got from her. And she really helped me to gain a perspective on the situation. She was someone I could talk to completely honestly, without blame, without trying to be accusatory and say, this is the situation and I need some help. And she helped me to understand that there are situations where no one's to blame, that there's a bad match, that sometimes in your career and in life, I guess, you're in situations where it's not your fault. And she helped me in various ways. She challenged me. She made sure that I did investigate every internal avenue to make things better for myself. She made sure I was asking the right questions and approaching things correctly. So not being defensive, not being accusatory, but kind of having that collaborative discussion with the right people internally to try and help my situation get better. But unfortunately for me, it just did not get to a stage where I really felt, there was progress. And so she spent an inordinate amount of time, actually. I mean, I'm massively grateful to her. In helping me understand that sometimes, and not always, but in this case, the only decision you can make is to put yourself first and not put the firm first, and put yourself and your reputation and ultimately your integrity first. And it was her asking me the right questions and pulling the information out of me. She didn't make a decision for me. She didn't push me to something, but she was able to ask me the questions that meant she got what I really wanted, and then was able to advise me and direct me without pushing me one way or the other. And it was ultimately her guidance and advice that meant, you know, I could learn from that experience, and I ended up leaving the firm. But I ended up doing so in a way that I was proud of, because I felt I'd stayed true to myself, that I'd done everything I could to rectify the situation. And by doing so, I left with the confidence to go about another process of finding a different job and ultimately finding something I could be successful in. So I guess it's a great example of how an external mentor can help you, but also, you know, that mentors sometimes are challenging, and sometimes they ask questions of you that you may not want to answer because they're difficult, and you have to look at yourself and think about what you might be able to do better, or sometimes what you've done wrong. But I think if you're open to it, and again, that word trust comes, but if you trust that they've got your best interests at heart, they really can help you through a situation, and I think get out of difficult situations in a positive way, rather than leave you. In my instance, it could have been quite damaging actually to my confidence, but because of her, it really wasn't.
Anna, that's such a personal experience, and thank you so much for sharing the details with us. I think everyone will benefit, and we can probably all of us take best advice from our mentors that we had in our life. And I would like to address the next question to Angela first, and then also Gaia. In terms of, same as Anna described, what's the best advice your mentors have given you, or the best lessons you learned so far from your mentors? Angela, over to you.
Thank you. Very similar in terms of the overall theme to what Anna was just saying there. It was really acting as a sounding board for me. I don't think I've ever had a situation where my mentor has told me what I should do. It has always been a discussion around, okay, this is the situation, where do we want to end up at the end of this, and really acting as that sounding board and helping. Sometimes I think it's really important to have someone that's not a family member that you have a discussion with, who are able to kind of look at all different sides. So that's probably been the key thing that I've got from having a mentor myself, is just acting as that sounding board, helping you work through discussions in your own head. You know, I think certainly something that I'm guilty of is, you know, I can think things through in my head, and come up with various different scenarios, but until you've actually like spoken out loud to someone about it, you don't know whether you're going mad or not. So that's really been the key thing for me.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think going from what Angela was saying, I completely agree. For me, the best thing I got out of it was learning to basically take opportunities. So as an 18-year-old, when I had my first mentor, I was kind of shy. I didn't really know how the finance sector kind of worked. I knew I had to do internships, but I didn't know what I wanted to go into. I just started an economics degree, so I could, you know, I'd just done my A-levels, and it was all new to me. And yeah, I think the best thing I learned was kind of, if you're presented with an opportunity, first of all, and you're interested, just go for it. And then whether you get it or not, you know, it's either you learn from the experience of why you didn't get it, or it's luck or something like that. And then also, if it is an opportunity and you're not sure how to kind of, for example, a job, you're not sure how to do the job, you can learn it once you've kind of applied to the opportunity, kind of thing, you know. Just, I think that was one thing, and I think that's what's kind of got me where I am at the moment, and I'm still pretty early in my career, but yeah, just whether it was like a scheme that my uni was doing, or just an internal project at the company that I was doing my student job at, or anything like that, I think just kind of seize the opportunity that you get, and as long as you're interested, of course.
Thanks, Gaia. Yeah, some really very different lessons that mentees have learned from their mentors. And coming back to what I think Angela touched on earlier, obviously mentors get a lot from it too. So kind of a question to Jill that I had, yeah, for sure, while mentees are very grateful for the knowledge and advice that we receive, do you think it could also be said, Jill, that through the mentor relationships, mentors themselves, you can learn more about next generation of, you know, young female talent up and coming? Has your experience of being a mentor help potentially inform some of your opinions about the challenges that younger female talent face, you know, the leadership, the guidance, the support they might need, and you'd be happy to give?
Absolutely. I think it's even on a broader way. I think just mentoring people gives you insight into every individual, and every individual's different, and the way they perceive things as well is important. I think we live in this sort of financial world, which, and particularly technology, where we think of everything as being on or off, you know, binary, but reality is that it's all very much about people, and everybody is different, everybody perceives things in their own way. And you know, having mentored people, it's shown me and encouraged me to recognize that difference. And you know, I've been a big supporter of diversity and inclusivity, and it's just continued to reinforce that. And I think, you know, very much as a leader, want to put processes in place to make sure people succeed being themselves. I think Anna is it's very inspirational to hear somebody talk about standing up to being themselves in an organization. But I think as leaders, it's important we recognize that you have to put frameworks in place, have to make sure that, you know, you don't start having a culture which is one dimensional and only, you know, include people of a particular type. And it's not just gender. I think, you know, I have met some very terrible senior female leaders, which I won't go into on the call, the names for anybody, but you know, who have modeled themselves on that alpha male, chauvinistic, and actually, to be blunt, they've been probably the worst of the men in that sense. And so I've learned, you know, very much that, going back to the original question, but I've also learned that, you know, I am now towards the end of my career. I hope I've still got many years left of life, but you know, and what people are experiencing now is very different, and what people want from life is very different. What they want from the workplace is different, and I can't imprint my either my experience or what was important to me when I was, you know, starting off. When I left work, when I left to, you know, go to college, my mother was very horrified. You know, how was my husband? I got married. Who was going to iron my husband's shirts? Well, I don't think, hopefully, many mothers would say that now to young women, but maybe they do. I don't know. But there's far different challenges now, and some of the challenges still can be the same. So I think, you know, it's taught me to continue to be open-minded, and you know, I learn something every day, and every mentee I have teaches me something else. So I think it reinforces that need as a leader to be open-minded, listen and learn, and I see it as a two-way process, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. The reciprocal nature of it definitely shouldn't be overlooked at all, especially for young people coming in, having their very first mentoring relationship, and what we've touched on, you know, what to expect from it. So in terms of the next question, yeah, we've seen how beneficial a mentor relationship can be at any juncture, but particularly, you know, early on in goal setting, career setting, helping with career development. And I had a question to Angela. You know, what would your opinion be on particularly young individuals, the first sort of mentors, having different mentors at the same time, simultaneously, both internally and externally, just to be able to capture those completely different viewpoints that we touched on earlier?
So I think there's a risk that people are early on in their careers are trying to do too much all at once. So I think it is very beneficial to have a mentor. Having more than one at the same time, I can see that there's an argument that is worthwhile. You know, perhaps having someone internal, have one external. But I think, you know, when you're at the early stage of your career, you're focusing on learning the job, you're focusing on learning the industry. You know, my personal view is that, you know, I think probably one mentor would probably be enough. You know, as you develop in your career, that changes, and you know, you possibly have more than one. But I think certainly early on, I would recommend probably just focusing on the one.
And Interrupts Angela. Do you think that there would be any kind of negative repercussions about getting a mentor too early on in your career? So if they're in the first year of their career, for example, is there a sense that the young women should be finding their own kind of feet, really trying to make their way in their career themselves without having someone to rely on as such? Or do you think that they need that kind of support in the very early stages?
Yeah, no, I don't think there is a too early a stage. People should take advantage of all the support that there's out there. I don't think there's anything to be gained to throwing someone in at the deep end and seeing if they swim or not. So no, I would say, if you have the opportunity and you're able, and the E2W mentoring scheme, I think is a great opportunity through the Alpha Challengers to be able to do that at an early stage in your career. I think is key.
Sophie, I might just add a comment on that, if I may, and I completely agree with Angela's perspective on it. I think it's really important, particularly early in your career, to be careful that you don't only have mentors and or advisors that think the same way as you. I think it's very easy, particularly early on in your career, to surround yourself with people that think similarly to you, because it feels safe and it gives you comfort, and there's no bad thing in that. But I think it's important to take advice and kind of bounce things off people with a different perspective to you. And that might not be a formal mentor, but I think it's important to have people in your career that can give you a different perspective. And I think one thing kind of Jill talked about was, I almost think of it as reverse mentoring, that it's always beneficial to kind of gain insight and perspective from someone junior to you, that you can learn a lot about what you're doing and how you're perceived from what they say. I also think, and this might be a bit of a controversial thing to say in this audience, but I think it's important that women have mentors that are male as well as mentors that are female. I do think it's important that we learn from other women, and we help each other develop, and we learn from those people who've trodden the path before us. But I actually think if you only, and this is a massive generalization, but if you only ever take advice from a female perspective, that might not be the most positive angle, and that how we operate in a firm, in an industry as women, and how men perceive us, it is important. It shouldn't be your guiding thing, but you should know it, and you should be aware of. And so I think this program is great because there are far fewer women in finance than men, and so it's far easier to get access to male mentors than it is to female mentors, and this program is helping to address that balance. But don't forget that men have a perspective too, and I know that's a huge generalization and it's probably a wrong way to talk about it, but think about diversity of thought when you're gaining advice and when you're getting mentorship, because groupthink is dangerous, and only speaking to people who have the same perspective of you is not always helpful.
Yeah, and it's so important. Like what you touch upon there is all the women within financial services mentors are here at E2W. So if a mentee wants a mentor, definitely come to the E2W mentorship program. Thank you so much. We actually have Gaia in the panel. She is at the beginning of her career and more junior roles. So I wanted to ask also her perspective on this. Do you believe, Gaia, from the Gen Z is going to need more dedicated mentoring to support early career women on their way up to the top? What's your opinion on this?
I think in any generation, early careers need a mentor in general. I mean, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have a mentor. I wouldn't be at this job. But I do think it's harder right now because I feel like everything is more virtual, maybe obviously in COVID as well. But I think being visible is a lot harder than it was maybe 10 years ago, for example. I think, like, for example, I found LinkedIn very helpful in general. So when I started working, I had a lot of contacts. And because of that, when recruiters were searching for students with economic degrees, I came up more in people's profiles and I could see that I was on kind of their watch list. So I've always, I mean, when younger students ask me, like, how do you kind of get internships? How do you kind of contact people? And I'm always like, well, LinkedIn is always a great source of, it's a great place to kind of start, and then you can kind of message people and, you know, get your name out there and get advice. But yeah, I think for this generation, yeah, it's definitely, I think in essence, we've kind of got, for example, with someone with an economics degree, we kind of got more and more students who are looking for jobs and things like that. So I think it's kind of giving them confidence as well to kind of stand out from the crowd and actually have that confidence in themselves. That was one thing I found very hard, especially at university, when that, you know, there's 300 graduates all looking for a similar role. It's like, how are they going to kind of recruit me and not somebody else? I think giving them that confidence first of all is the most important, and then yeah, everything else kind of depends on each person and what they're looking for and the roles they're looking for. But I don't know if any other women have any other thoughts on this as well.
I was just going to say, on the LinkedIn piece, a really useful approaching tool to kind of diversify your network, and what Anna talked about of getting that diverse set of opinions. So I kind of just wanted to ask the panels, and I think Deepthi's asked this question on the internal chat. If you're looking for that diversity of thought, yet in work you might be surrounded by similar teams, similar people, similar mentalities, what's some best advice on how to approach and go out there and get a mentor? Obviously there's the great schemes like this, but in the workplace, if you see someone who's a real role model, like, how do you go out by initiating those conversations? If anyone on the panel wants to answer that, because that's a question from Deepthi in the audience.
Well, my view would be, I mean, ask. I think if you look at someone and you think they look like a great mentor, they look like they've got qualities or experiences that would help me, I imagine they're the kind of person you could approach. And so, you know, have the confidence to ask people. The other way you can do it is ask for an introduction. So maybe there's someone in your team or someone you already know who knows that person and would be willing to introduce you. So and use HR, I guess. If you've got a good HR function, then, you know, ask them. If you're looking for someone internally that you've kind of identified yourself. But I'd agree with Sophie, you know, the E2W mentoring scheme is entirely the place to go to find that, because of the work you guys do to make sure that you're matching people well, and you're putting thought behind that, which makes a huge difference, I think.
The other thing I would say is, you know, this is a great way of finding external mentors, but if your current organisation doesn't have employee networks or a women's network, it's worth thinking about getting a group of you together to do that. You can take control of this, and you know, the way that I would approach that is I set one up at UBS when I was there, but I've also been a big sponsor at the other organisations I've been at since, and we've increasingly in the organisations I've been in had a women's network, but also recognised that sometimes having, you know, sub networks of people at different stages in their career and actually empowering them to create either reverse mentoring or mentoring situations, and can pull into Anna's point, male mentors as well, but the men that will be sensible about it, if I can say it that way, who will add value to a mentoring relationship, you know, and be in, you know, give a good perspective, but also be aware that you know, there is sometimes sensitivities as well. So I would encourage that as another way of doing it. Seek out, if you've got a women's network, if not, seek out a senior, possibly woman, but he doesn't have to be. My first sponsor was the head of equities trading at UBS. He was a man. There weren't many senior women at that point, so we adopted him, and take initiative. You know, get something going internally. Maybe reach out to HR, but I don't always see this as, I mean, I agree it can be HR if it's in your organisation, but HR sometimes doesn't see this as their role. And doing it yourself can actually be quite, I found it very rewarding. And I would add to the networking point, introduced me to a lot of people around the organisation that I would have never had the reason to work with by actually being part of that inclusivity and diversity initiative. So something a little bit tangential there, but something perhaps for some of you to think about.
Actually, I want to add something to that as well. Not many people know about this, but I only just, so I was been in contracting for about 6 years with Barclays, and I literally just got a permanent role in March as head of finance for Nomura Asset Management UK. Before, well, actually that interview process lasted about 6 months. When I first got introduced that role, I was kind of nervous because the role that I was doing in Barclays was completely different. I was a business partner. I was working on I was a financial modeler, completely different to the head of finance role. So what I did was I actually reached out to my a CFO that I used to work for. And I just out of the blue, just emailed him and say, please, can you help me? I really want this role. Can you just go through this with me so I can go through this interview? And he was so happy to help me. He literally emailed me straight away and prepared me with that interview. He looked at the job description. He's like, Vivian, you've done this all before. Why are you so worried about it? Have the confidence. And then he actually prepped me with the interview process. And then it went through because it's 6 months. So I had 4 different interviews. Again, he was every time he'd be just call me if you need me. We'll meet up. We have a glass of wine and we'll talk about it. So that's how he actually helped me to get this position and giving me that confidence. And actually, I realized that I could actually do that job. I didn't realize that I could, and I was so afraid. But he guided me to the right way. So yeah, definitely don't just speak up. Don't afraid to ask help if you need it. I think that is very critical. So even though when I was in Barclays, my manager, I actually eventually told him that I was interviewing. And he was like, oh my God, he was quite upset about it at first, but then he realized why I was doing it. But then again, I was being very honest. So look, this is what I want to do for my life and please help me. And he also helped me to become more a director role within Barclays, even though I was a contractor. He made me speak in front of the CFO. He made me to do certain things that contractor probably wouldn't have done. So yeah, I definitely felt being honest and speak up and just ask is definitely the key to go. Don't worry about if it's a female or male. I think everyone said the same thing. All my unfortunately or fortunately, all my mentors are all male. I think it's because of the level, the seniority they are in. There are more men than women. So I didn't actually get any help from female. But I'm actually now, because I'm in the position where I am now, I'm actually being tasked to do something called people culture within Nomura. I'm actually setting up a mentor program so that not only women but also men can actually have that mentorship, able to help each other formally and informally. So I think definitely ask for help is key to your success. Yeah.
On that point, Vivian, of the kind of contracting positions, which can sometimes be shorter, in term, what would your advice be on being able to build and cultivate those really strong mentor relationships when you're a contractor shorter term?
Yeah, interesting. I was contracting for Barclays for 6 years, but before that I was in another company called Carlyle Private Equity. I actually had 2 contracts, but within those contracts I have mini contracts, and I was reporting to different people. Again, I think it's my personality maybe a little bit. I just never have any limitation. I never think that I'm a female so I can't ask, or I am only contracted to do this job so I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't think about my race. I don't think about I'm not even a qualified, I'm not a graduate either. I've got no university degree. But yeah, I just ask all the time. So I'm not afraid of asking. I think that is quite key for anyone who wants to be in that, to develop the career. So every contract I was, even in Barclays, I just asked questions if I needed to. I idolize this woman called Martha Benz. I don't know if anybody know about her. I always think that she is the key for the success of Mercedes-Benz. Without her, she had no education, she had no money, but she dedicated her life to her husband. Actually, gave him all the money. She's the first person who drove 100 kilometers from one place to the other on the first automobile car, because nobody wanted to invest, nobody understand it, but she was like, no, I don't care, I'm gonna do it. She literally just went to the car and drove all the way 100 kilometers. So everyone saw oh, who is this person driving this automobile? she's got like she had lots of she has a lot of issues while she was driving this car, but she used her initiative. She didn't like afraid to do anything that she needed to do and just drive that car. And without her, there would be no Mercedes-Benz. That's for sure. So I often think that she's like my idol. Like, don't be afraid to do anything you want to do. If you believe in yourself, just go and seek it out. So yeah, that's what kind of what I do. Just ask. Don't be afraid.
That's such an interesting story, Vivian. And also, we as women, I think we should just learn to be more visible in general.
Yeah.
We do have, I'm just conscious of the time, but we do have a question from Robin, which I think is very relevant in this period of time. I'm just going to read the question from the chat. Given the current circumstances, has the panel got any advice around conducting a successful mentoring relationship virtually? So I know Jill, Anna, and Angela, you are all three mentors currently with E2W. Do you have any suggestions?
So I'd say, I think everyone is very au fait now with Zoom and Teams. That's certainly what I've used in terms of the initial conversations that I've had with my mentee. And yeah, I mean, it's not optimal to be doing it remotely, but you know, you can see someone's face, you can see their facial expressions, and it's good enough to kind of start off the relationship.
Yes, I agree. I don't think it would be terribly easy to do it literally over a phone. I did have a mentee from a different organization that I was sort of mentoring, and we tried it over the phone. I don't think we ever really got that sort of relationship, because as you said, I think seeing somebody, even if it is virtually, is actually really needed. I think you get to know somebody a lot better. You can probably rely on the odd sort of phone call if necessary, but I think you need to sort of strive, and there's no real excuse these days. I mean, even if you just got iPhones and FaceTimes and things, there's so many different ways you can use video, and you don't need terribly large sort of internet bandwidth, etc. So I think that I would struggle to recommend anybody tries to do it without using at least video. It'd be nice to meet in person. Unfortunately, I think we may still be a way off. And actually, touching on some of the earlier conversations, sometimes actually having people in even other parts of the world, we haven't really talked about that. We sort of tended to assume external means somewhere just fairly close to us. But some of the better insights I've had of talking to people in other parts of the world over my career, I've had global teams, and that's just another dimension. And sometimes even just understanding how another culture might handle a situation can give you another dimension to consider. So I think we shouldn't rule out the idea that mentoring has to be in person. There's definitely value in that, and particularly for complex and difficult questions, but there's also value, I think, in using these video and the newer technologies to maybe even broaden that mentor network further out. So yeah, but definitely stick to video, I think, is my short answer.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say it would be interesting to ask some of the mentees among us how they find the video call format, and if it works for them, because I guess as mentors, we do what works best for you. So yeah, if it's not working for you, tell us and we'll change the format.
I think the video works really well. In fact, especially with face. In fact, sometimes it's difficult to take time and travel and meet the person at a particular location, and logistically find amongst a group of people. So it does lead to a lot of wastage in time, and I think that's right now it's very efficient. And as Jill pointed out, there's the global angle as well. I come from a different country, and I got a lot of new perspectives from the people around here. So I really do appreciate that part, which thankfully I am in this location, but right now virtually we can take advantage of that pretty well.
Brilliant. Thank you. As Mihaela said, I'm quite conscious of the time. I don't want to keep you any longer. You need to all go and enjoy the evening. But just picking up on a point that Gaia had mentioned in the chat box, there isn't a deadline on this. I imagine this to just be a rolling thing that we do all the time. So if you want to register to become or to be a mentor or to be a mentee, then please get in touch. If it's not right at this moment in time, you can say to me, come September, when I start my new job, or I'm in a different space, then absolutely that's fine by me. And I hope that it's something that I'm going to be doing as part of our membership offerings moving forward. So there's no deadline at all. Get in touch and send me your details. So just to wrap up, really thank you so much to the panel for speaking this evening. It's been really insightful to hear both sides of the coin, really. So really want to send my thanks to you. But also thank you so much to Sophie and Mihaela, because it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on the mentor scheme. And if you want to register to volunteer to be a mentor, or if you are an Alpha Challenger and you want the support of a mentor in our community, please let me know. Get in touch. It's a really simple process, and we can get it up and running really, really quickly. If you know someone in your organisation that you think could benefit from being put in touch with E2W and our mentor scheme, then please let us know. We really do rely on word of mouth, and when you share our bits and pieces on LinkedIn, it does help us so much. So talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, and if there's anyone that we can support, obviously we'd love to. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.